Do you know that US President Donald Trump believes South Korea should pay a lot more for the stationing of 28,500 US troops here? This becomes an issue that emerged as a key challenge facing the decades-old alliance. The two sides have been negotiating the renewal of a cost-sharing deal for next year, amid reports that Washington seeks a more than five-fold increase in Seoul's contributions to $5 billion. However, such a large increase is believed to be beyond the scope of the Special Measure Agreement, or SMA, the cost-sharing deal between the two allies. Some even argue that their status of forces agreement, or SOFA, should be revised in order to increase by this much. This week, Korea-Now will look into US demand for a five-fold increase in Seoul's sharing of the cost for the upkeep of US Forces Korea, or USFK, and its feasibility. The SOFA is an agreement between South Korea and the US, which was approved and enacted in 1967 and revised twice in 1991 and 2001. Its former name is the Agreement under Article 4 of the Mutual Defense Treaty between the Republic of Korea and the United States, regarding facilities and areas and the status of United States Armed Forces in the Republic of Korea. Article 5 of the SOFA stipulates that South Korea does not pay for the stationing of US troops here except for expenses related to facilities, areas, and passage rights of airport or port used by the US troops. Accordingly, the US had originally not asked South Korea to pay for the maintenance of the USFK. In the late 1980s, however, Washington began demanding the sharing of stationing cost, citing its worsening fiscal and trade balance and Seoul's economic development. Eventually, the two countries signed their first SMA in January 1991 and made an exception. Since then, Seoul has shouldered partial costs under the SMA for Korean civilians hired by the USFK, the constructions of military facilities to maintain the Allies' readiness, and other forms of support. The two allies had reached their 10th SMA before negotiations began last September to conclude the 11th SMA. In the meantime, Seoul's share costs have increased gradually from $150 million in 1991 to $870 million this year. Little progress has been made in the allies' negotiations for the next SMA, as Washington has called for a more than five-fold increase from Seoul's payment of this year. Amid the SMA negotiations, US officials have stressed that Korea has made great strides economically, has contributed to the treaty alliance, and needs to do more. A flurry of reports said that the US negotiation team demanded South Korea make additional payments under the SMA to cover the cost related to the operation of US troops who are assigned to USFK on a rotational basis, and other expenses related to the allies' regular combined military exercises. Other reports said that Washington appeared to have demanded Seoul shoulder the cost for running military assets, including surveillance and reconnaissance equipment that is deployed near the peninsula or even on bases in the Pacific, including Guam and Hawaii. In the past and at present, however, Seoul has made it clear that defense cost-sharing negotiations must proceed strictly within the SMA framework. We can shoulder reasonably within the existing framework, Seoul's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa said recently at a parliamentary session. Again, under this year's SMA, signed in February and valid until December 31st, South Korea agreed to pay $870 million, an increase of 8.2% from the previous year. Now, the Trump administration is demanding an increase to the extent that the framework of the alliance is shaking. There has also been a media report that the US is considering reducing troops in South Korea if Seoul refuses to accept Washington's demand. This surely goes against the spirit of the alliance, although the US has officially denied it. Some even argue that such an increase is possible only after revising the SOFA, which is superior to the SMA, because the US is asking to change the scope of defense cost stipulated in Article 5 of the SOFA. What are your thoughts on this? Please let me know in the comments below, and thank you for watching Korea-Now.